All right, and we're back with the show. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here with my good friend Jamie Monroy from Game Source. He's here stopping by to talk about Sniper Elite 3. It's now been ported to the Nintendo Switch. So I ask you, my friend, your thoughts. Is it a good match, Sniper Elite 3 and the Nintendo Switch?
It's not a horrible match or a bad match at all, but the fate of Nintendo ports, be it what it may, on this one, I can say they did not suffer on the multiplayer aspect, which is good for them. They needed that strong multiplayer aspect for this. I think for the Switch, because in my opinion, there hasn't been a huge game besides like Smash, Mario, that have brought that multiplayer feel. The only problem I have with Sniper Elite 3 Ultimate Edition on the Switch is that it's the same as before. You got to port to the Switch just like Diablo, and it's the same thing that we've all played 3 or 4 times because there's been how many different ports or rehashes or gold editions or ultimate editions, legendary editions have been out, you know, that we've all played this. My biggest thing is why they didn't go with 4, why they went backtracking to 3, because I feel like everybody's played 3 to death, including myself. I actually just went right back and played it on the Xbox One not too long before I started playing this. Not a huge issue. I do like that it comes with everything out the gate. That's great, especially at the price points. At the value for it is amazing. I
So it
didn't get.
includes all the DLC.
It does. It does. Includes all the DLC. They actually added some new missions, so they've got some strength going there as far as they improve their storytelling. They can take the original story they had going before, and they're adding elements to just. There's longer maps, more in depth. I didn't get too far into the extras, but I did touch on them some, and those kind of bring it to light. My only where'd I go? Uh-oh. You still got me? Oh no. This thing. Come on, computer, wake up. Oh my gosh, are you serious right now? My laptop's just gonna freeze?
Story of my day.
I'm back. Oh, now I can't hear you. Are you muted? Wait, what? You can hear me, but I can't hear you. It says you're muted.
Yeah. Like I can hear you. I can hear you.
I'm like, I know, but I can't hear you.
Don't go away. So
I don't know
as you were
what the heck
as
happened.
you were saying,
So another port, right? We're already on that subject. Everything else, it's fine, but only it's because it's been rehashed. I feel like it's another Diablo and another Skyrim. It's just being rehashed upon rehashed upon rehashed, which is fine. There's a lot of people that love that game. I personally liked it.
but
Issues
how
with
does
the
it play
Switch.
on the Switch? Because you said there was an issue when it's docked to undocked.
Well, with that aspect, it was a lot easier to play it docked as opposed to undocked. Just some of the animations weren't looking as great on the small Switch screen, which is to be expected considering you're not playing it on an Xbox One or a PS4. It's not going to push the same as it would when you played it on those. So you kind of have to go into it looking at it that way, but I didn't expect it to be that big of a difference from me having to dock it and undocking it, because I wanted more of that. Let me just take Sniper Elite with me wherever I go, which is fine. It's okay. I
How's the
don't.
frame rate?
It's touch and go, very touch and go. A lot of the enemy stuff doesn't render very quickly.
Is
Or
it is there a
sharply.
difference? Is there a difference when you're docked to undocked on the frame rate?
A little. I'd say a little. Obviously, a lot more than what there would be when you're playing it on the smaller screen. Because, depending on your TV, if it helps it, then it'll help it. But, I mean, it wasn't horrible. Just, to me, not something that I would go out of my way to go nuts over. Like I said earlier, I honestly think that it should have been more. They should have pushed to go with 4 instead of 3. I know probably the option of going with 3 was, one, it was probably a lot cheaper of an option and easier to give to the people on the Switch that would come with what they've added and all the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it makes sense for the value. And if you have ever played that game ever, and you own a Switch and you liked that game, then I'm definitely not telling you not to play it. I'm just saying, if you've played it a bunch of times already, you may want to think about going a different direction.
But it's the only Sniper Elite actually on the system at this point in time. Is that correct?
That's correct. So for that aspect, if you haven't played it at all and you own a Switch and you want that on the go dock, Switch feel, go for it. I mean,
Because
but
right
the
now it
aiming's
sits
going to
about
take
$40 at right now
right.
as far as the MSRP. So,
Which is definitely worth it for what they've done with the added stories and all the DLC. Definitely worth it if you don't already own it somewhere else. Because obviously this isn't the first Ultimate Edition. So, I mean, you gotta look at that aspect as well. But, I mean, not a horrible game, just I am not a huge fan of rehashing ports after rehashing ports after rehashing ports. But that's personally my opinion.
well, unfortunately for the developer, they don't see your eye as
Of course
far as
not.
that's good, because they need to go ahead and try and milk every dollar. I mean, they're taking the Bethesda playbook when it comes to Skyrim and putting it on every feasible platform to try and squeeze every single dollar that you can. I don't blame them for doing so, because obviously it helps the bottom line. For a title like that, which may or may not have made a profit over the course of its lifetime originally in its original release and things of that nature, maybe this will help push it over the top or just add and sweeten to the pot so that we can get more Sniper Elites in the future, because this is not a top tier AAA developer. So I can see them trying to go ahead and do some of this just so they can have more means of income to keep the doors open for them. I don't mind as much them as when I do see Bethesda bring out the umpteenth edition of Skyrim over the course of 6-7 years, instead of going ahead and bringing out an Elder Scrolls game that much sooner.
See, and I think that's what gave me the sour taste for the port after rehash, is the fact that Skyrim just was everywhere, and everybody started making a joke about it. Remember? Oh, hey, play Skyrim on your Engage, play Skyrim on your phone, play Skyrim somewhere in your bathroom. I mean, it was getting ridiculous.
So overall, your thoughts on it, and maybe, if you want to give it a score right now for this edition on the Switch with all the issues, but still the fact that, like you said, if you haven't approached the Sniper Elite series so far, since it's the only thing available on Switch, and because it has all the DLC, it is a good value in that sense. But overall, as a game, from maybe a 1 to 10 score, what would you give it?
I'd give it about a 7, only because they're great at storytelling. The game itself is not horrible. I'm not trying to make it out like it's horrible at all, not in any aspect. It just has its flaws, and that's, a lot of it is it's being pushed backwards, I guess I want to say. Like, it went kind of in reverse. You went from going to 4K, on these big systems that can push out graphically, to scaling it down a tad, which always affects a game no matter what game it is. Now, with that being said, it's not. The only other thing that got me the most was the aiming aspect. That takes a good bit of getting used to, especially if you've played any other shooters prior to jumping into this. It's almost like you're going into a learning curve again for the aiming, which it's okay, you get used to, but in the very first initial, going out, it's very rough to get used to. You're like, whoa, what happened? It's because you're used to playing, with the Xbox or playing with the PS4, and then you go on this, and it's totally a different aspect to what you're used to, but you get used to it.
Once again, it is Sniper Elite 3. It is now available on the Nintendo Switch for a retail value of $39.99. Jamie's given it a passable review. It's got its issues, got its flaws, but if you're looking for a shooter out there for the Nintendo Switch, it might be one of your best options at this point in time. Well, Jamie,
Absolutely.
I'd like to say thank. Well, huh? What?
I was saying absolutely. Speaking of absolutely, I could think of 3 letters though that I want to talk about right now. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but is that okay?
Well, okay.
It doesn't matter if it's okay to steal a pun from someone else.
All right, I'll tell you what. You've got something else on your mind. I can tell. And we'll go ahead and talk about that a little bit later in the show, because right now I'm coming back with Josh here in a sec, talking about New York Comic Con. Then Jason Todd Feinberg has his spoiler review of the Joker. I'll tell you what, right after he talks about the Joker, Jason Feinberg, I'll go ahead and bring you up right after the break to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. I'll give you a few minutes of your own coming up later in the show. How about that?
All right, as long as I don't lose it between now and then like someone else did for this company that I'm about to talk about.
Okay, fair enough indeed. Okay, we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. Jamie Monroy from Game Source is back once again. I'm going to give you the soapbox for a few minutes, my friend. You've got it. The clock is ticking, but the showcase of the show. But the show, I'm going to go ahead and swing to you right now.
Well, let me ask you one question, sir. Did you happen to catch Wednesday Dynamite?
I did catch All Elite Wrestling Dynamite on Wednesday, also trying to flip back and forth between them and, of course, their competition on Wednesday nights in NXT.
Fair enough. Well, I don't know how you felt, but to me, AEW, they came with it. I'll give them that. Good premiere. Not what I expected. I'm sure probably not what a lot of people expected, given AEW's run before going televised. You had death matches. You had just nonstop action. Now, obviously, we're going to sit here and think, well, okay, they're going to television. Obviously, the network's not going to let them do the death matches and all the stuff that they were doing on their, online streaming pay-per-views and stuff. But when you take that kind of a show from your online streaming and such that everyone got to know on that aspect, and then kind of cookie cutter it, slap some PG, maybe teen on it, and then throw it out on TV, it changes the game altogether. Now, again, it wasn't a horrible show, but was it one of their best shows? Not by far.
Well, again, I think a lot of the thinking was building storylines and building things towards a future for not just short term next week, the week beyond, and whatnot, but also the thinking and their mindset has to be that we're not trying to win the war right now, even though they ended up winning the ratings war by over 600,000 viewers. They still have to go ahead and worry about, are we going to be a viable entity 6 months, a year down the line? So in that essence, I mean, it's just step one. But you're right. You're not going to be able to see the best of their products, I think, as a whole every Wednesday night. I mean, for that, you're going to have to tune into the pay-per-views, I think, to get the best of All Elite Wrestling. And that's the same thing goes for the World Wrestling Entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
You do not get the Raws that you got back in the 90s when they were in heated competition with WCW Nitro. You're not getting that. Even, the closest thing you got was actually last Friday for SmackDown, as far as something that they had to go ahead and turn it up a notch because they're now in front of close to 4 million viewers as opposed to the 2 million viewers they were doing just the week prior. So, they had to go ahead and turn up a notch and bring everything but the kitchen sink that they could out there, including The Rock, including, Hogan and Flair and all that, and bring all the matches that they could, that, and have the title change, the hot shot title change that they had and all that. But with All Elite Wrestling, you're right. Now that's the weekly entity, there has to be a different mindset, I guess, in their opinion. Plus, you're right. They are on TNT. And TNT is not going to let them get away with some of the stuff that they did on their previous pay-per-view events.
Correct. But, you brought up 3 other letters twice, WCW and TNT. Lest us not forget that the last time someone had a wrestling show on TNT, where did it end up?
Well, it ended up in the hands of Vince McMahon.
Could we see lightning strike twice?
Well, I don't know if there's enough there in the bank for him to go ahead and buy them off. I mean, if he wants to buy them off just to get rid of them, but I think that's going to be a little bit of a while because, again, they are owned by the Khans, the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars, so it's not like they'll be hurting for cash anytime soon. It's not like the issues with what was part of the downfall of WCW and Time Warner wanting to get out of the pro wrestling business at that point in time. If Time Warner wants to go ahead and AEW, they'll cancel AEW because now it's just a television show for them. They don't own it. They don't own any part of it. They just have the rights to the weekly television. So now it's all into the hands of the Khans, and especially the younger Tony Khan, I believe, who's the son of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is really running the show at this point in time. And right now, it's all good. Fans are interested in it. They're not selling out every time like they were early on. They're not selling out like they were, at least as of recently, with some of their shows. But they're still very hot. They're still very hot commodity. They're still on Hot Topic. Hot Topic just signed an exclusive deal, so they've got some sources of revenue. But yes, there are signs that they do need to prove. And I can tell that just by your sounding of your voice that there are areas in which they need to go ahead and take care of if they want to go ahead and retain you as a viewer long term.
Well, you know me, long-term wrestling fan. You know that we've had quite a few talks on record, off record, and we both missed that attitude era. I've come to the realization myself that we're never going to get that. We're never going to get that again.
No, not at that point in time. Not the things that are going around. Not the people jumping from left to right on one week, or even on the same week and being on the same television show like Rick Rude was in the same time frame, or people dumping their WWE WWF titles in a trash can. Those days are not going to say essentially over, but they're pretty much done for because of guaranteed contracts. And we live in an altogether different world here in 2019 than we did back then. So it's not going to be the same way. And I've said that to people. This is Wednesday Night War is pretty much a quotation and overhype because it's not really anything compared to what we saw before. People just need to say, hey, it's Wednesday entertainment. If both shows combine, keep over 2 million viewers by the end of the year, I think everyone will be happy.
Agreed. And like you said prior, AEW is just getting started. So, they got to take those baby steps and crawl before they walk. I don't know what their next big move is going to be. I know they pulled in a lot of good talent. Now let's just see how they're utilized.
Absolutely, indeed, my friend. All right, so you had your piece. You're off your soapbox right now. But before you get off that soapbox, I want to hear from you, man. How can people follow you on Twitter or Twitch or anywhere else they can follow Jamie Monroy and Game Source?
Twitter handle is Degenerate08. Feel free to stop by. Twitch, we're looking at www.twitch.tv/Degenerate2018. Also, you can catch me on Mixer, Degenerate08. Stop by, throw some comments, tell me a game you want to see streamed, see if we can make it happen.
Absolutely, indeed, my friend. So great talking to you. So great hearing your opinions on AEW and also as well on Sniper Elite 3 on the Switch. So check out also his written thoughts on Sniper Elite 3 on Nintendo,
Yes.
right? Coming up on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com.
And then I think we're shooting for later in the week and have a little discussion about platoons.
That's right. Platoon's Party coming up for the PCC Multiverse on Friday, so check that out as well.
Should be good.